Welcome everyone to this amazing session today. Like, I'm very excited to actually do this session because at GMATWhiz we always try to bring you inspiring stories of our students of people who have done exceedingly well of the GMAT and who end up becoming an inspiration for others. And today is one such day when we are bringing a story of someone who has not just mastered a GMAT 760, like who has not just gotten a verbal 44, but he has actually shattered the score plateau. When I speak to many Indian students, like I'm an Indian myself, I'm a non-native speaker. I see them struggling big time with verbal. Like I remember my old days. I remember studying for 6 whole months and getting stuck at a verbal 13 in my very first mock that I did after 6 months of prep. And it was so disheartening at that point of time. I was completely clueless what's happening. I've put in so much of effort and I don't see any ray of hope. And not like the story that we are bringing to you today. Balaji, definitely he's not as bad as I was, but he was definitely a star as well. Like in the after 6 months of preparation using a very well-known online course, he took the first attempt in March, scored a 710 with a verbal 36. But for the next 2 months, he made sure that he takes like gives 100% to GMAT. Took an attempt in April, took an attempt in May. The score came out to be 700 both times, and the verbal was plateaued at that range. So you can see over here, the score was exactly flat. Like there was no improvement in the score. In fact, it decreased by 1 or 2 points in most of the cases. But the same person made sure that he doesn't just leave it at that. He made sure that he understands what went wrong and works on those things to kind of get to the level where in the next 2 months itself, where in the last 2 months he had no improvement in verbal, in the next 2 months he was able to improve his verbal score by around 10 points, and not just a verbal 40 or 41, he scored a verbal 44, which is the 99th percentile, and he scored 760. So without any further ado, I would like to invite amongst us Balaji to actually achieve this amazing feat. So how does it feel, Balaji, to kind of have that 760 with a verbal 40 finally under your belt? Like how does it feel?
Yeah, it was sort of unbelievable at first because, of course, 3 attempts I was stuck at V35, V36. I'm so used to seeing that 700 on the screen. So when I saw that 760, it was quite unbelievable. In fact, I couldn't accept my score for a while. And then it took me a while. It took a while to set in. But it's a good feeling. It's a good feeling.
Definitely, I'm sure you are being very humble here, like because of the fact that you had 3 attempts where you scored a 700. But when Balaji was taking mocks before this last attempt, like this fourth attempt of his, he was actually scoring around 750, 716, around that consistently in the mock. So again, that was something which was expected. But once you have seen that score around 700 multiple times in the past in very recent times, it does affect you. So you take a bit of time to kind of get that feeling in. So I'm really excited to kind of cover Balaji's journey. But guys, I'm here acting as a moderator. So this is your place, guys. You can ask Balaji any question that you want about his preparation, about your problem. So if you are stuck in verbal, which I'm sure many of you would be, because most of the people, non-native especially, get stuck in verbal. So if that is the case, feel free to ask questions to Balaji. My job is to act as a moderator and post your questions in a synchronized fashion to Balaji, basically. So that's what I would be doing. So please go ahead, like this video if you actually find it helpful, and do comment with your questions, and we will be happy to take them up. So let's get started with your introduction, Balaji. Let's tell the audience about yourself. What is that you do, and when did your GMAT journey start? How did it start? Just a brief about that will really be helpful.
Right. So I have a background in petroleum engineering. I work for an oil and gas national oil and gas firm. I have around 5 years of experience doing that. And so I started my GMAT journey, or like to start. I started preparing for the GMAT sometime around last year August with another test prep company. My intention was to take the first attempt and be test ready at least in 4 months. But I found the course was quite exhaustive, and then given my work schedule, I took me quite a long time to just get test ready, and somehow I took the test after two official mocks. When I saw that my score was around 700, I felt confident, and then I took my first attempt in when was it, March, right?
In March.
March, yeah.
Yes. March. So again, just to give you some idea, Balaji works on an oil rig, so he's technically for almost 2 weeks he is on the offshore in the offshore place where he can hardly study, and 2 weeks he gets an entire month to study, and that has been his schedule for almost like last 5 years, and that's something with which he still managed to kind of get to the score. So all of you who think that okay, being a working professional is a disadvantage, think twice, because most of the people who are taking the GMAT are working professionals, and some of them might be like Balaji, who have even more difficult, like say, time schedules to kind of match up to. So all of that effort, 6 months like of preparation you did, and you took the first attempt, and then you took two more attempts as we discussed in April and May. But what did you feel that what was lagging in your first three attempts versus your last attempt that you did? Like, what was that one main thing which you felt was lacking?
A lot of things. I feel confidence. At least, like in this attempt, when I was taking the test, I knew I was selecting the correct answer. That kind of confidence I lacked in my first three attempts. Even though I was able to get good scores occasionally in my official practice tests, I even somewhere around, I
Mhm.
think, practice test 3 or 4, I picked at a 750, 760. But I all felt like, okay, maybe
Mhm.
this is one off attempt where I get a high score. I did not have that
Mhm.
confidence that I would be able to replicate it, and it was what happened, right? So on the test day, I wasn't able to get that. I felt like something major. The major shift was in the confidence and the way I approached things, for which I took GMAT
Mhm.
with this help.
And Balaji has put it very, very, very simply, very subtly. But what he wants to communicate mainly is that when you're solving verbal questions, like many times what happens is that you are stuck in the last two choices. You're not sure which is the correct answer. You're picking one of them. On good days, you pick up the right answer more often. On bad days, you pick the wrong answer more often. So even if you score well, you don't feel that confidence inside that you can actually replicate the same thing on another day. So that one thing which changed, and it's a very small thing. It seems like a very small thing, confidence, but actually it's a very big thing. Like when you know that okay, you're picking this answer for this particular reason, you know the other four are wrong for this particular reason, and you're confident that you are going to get a good score. So that's something which is very, very critical. So very well put, Balaji, like in a subtle way, in a simple way, but we will go in depth on each of these main aspects. So I'll just quickly tell you how have we structured this session today. So I have this slide just to kind of give you guys a like a visual representation of what we are speaking, so that you're not just hearing. You can also see what is that we are talking about. So the slide is just for that purpose. So how we will go about doing this is like we will talk about the ESR analysis. So Balaji, one good thing he did was he ordered the ESR of all the first three attempts. Like, and we asked him to order the ESR for the fourth attempt. Not that he needed it with a verbal 44. We wanted to see how the ESR looks like. So we will see how the ESRs were. What did we analyze from the ESRs? How did we come to an understanding of what kind of planning needs to be done for the score improvement that we are looking at? And from there, we will talk about the verbal strategy that actually led to a verbal 44 per Balaji. And we will actually talk about the 8 week action plan. So, the amazing improvement of level, about 10 points, which happened in about 8 weeks. We'll talk exactly about how each week was spent by Balaji. We'll talk about that. Then we'll talk about timing strategies. A lot of people question around, okay, how should we time ourselves? I know there are going to be more questions as we move forward. We have two questions from Siddharth and Shreya. We'll definitely take them up, don't worry, as we move forward to the relevant part of the session. But timing is one thing which a lot of people talk about. So Balaji will share his insights on timing strategy, and then obviously, we're open to sharing additional tips. So very quickly, starting with the ESR analysis. So as I said, like the last attempt, which like before he started working with GMATWhiz, was basically in May. And from there, he worked for 2 more months and improved his score from a 700 to 760, where he improved his verbal score by about 9 points in this from the last attempt, basically. And when we looked at his ESR, basically for the verbal section for the last first three attempts, and what we saw was that if you see the ESR, I've just shared the representation of SCCR and RC. Now, this is something which is very critical for you to understand that whenever you are stuck, you have to identify what's the core problem. And to look at the core problem, you can't just look at numbers. You have to look at the story that these numbers are telling. And that's very critical. Now, you have a look at all three screenshots on the screen, basically. And again, I have actually highlighted the observation in the bottom, so you can probably read that and understand what's happening here. But the main thing which we focused on was that in the very first attempt, RC was the strongest suit. In the next attempt, critical reasoning was the strongest suit. In the third attempt, RC and SC both ended up being similar, like both ended up being the strongest suit. So what was happening was that things were changing from one attempt to another significantly. We are not looking at just small changes, a lot of changes were happening. But what we definitely saw was that his scores in all these attempts was above 50th percentile for all the sections, always. What that meant was that when it comes to easy and medium questions, Balaji was fairly consistent. But when this kind of fluctuation happens in the score, the only reason why that happens is because you are getting stuck in the last two choices in hard questions. And that's what Balaji was telling, that earlier he was not feeling confident with hard questions, basically. So that is something that we analyzed and realized that this is what is happening. And then we did a further deep dive into the ESR. We looked at the difficulty level chart. Now I'm just showing two of the snapshot instead of all three first attempts, because then the data will be too cluttered. So if you see in both these attempts, okay, what you will find again consistently happening is that the red line, which basically is the incorrect questions, like which denotes the incorrect questions, the red line is always above the blue line. So this y-axis is the difficulty level of the questions. So what we saw was that he was always getting medium hard questions wrong. So he was very consistent with medium questions. Whenever you see the level as it, like if you look at the blue line, it is around that medium level, and the red line is on the medium hard level. So he's struggling to get the medium hard questions wrong. And this is something which re-strengthened our observation around the approach part. Because if you get the hard questions right, and you don't get the, if you get the medium questions right and you don't get the hard questions right consistently, then the main reason why this is happening is that you have a sound understanding of concepts, but some fine tuning is needed with respect to your approach towards solving questions. Again, I'm doing all this monologue here, but this is just the discussion that I and Balaji had. Like we had our first discussion, I think around 15th of May, right? We put the test on 13th, I guess, and we had a discussion just in a couple of days over a call where we talked about all the ESRs, and Balaji shared all of them and we looked at it. So this helped us in getting the quantitative insights into what is happening. And one more thing which we saw was that in the three attempts, CR was something which was generally on the lower side. So if you look at CR, it was below 70 percentile in two attempts and it was above 70 percentile in one attempt. So we felt that CR is something where Balaji would probably need a lot more effort. RC and SC were still better overall. Like RC was his strength, obviously. Like except for one bad attempt, otherwise he did decently well on RCs. And SC was also decent, but SC was stuck at 76, 78, very consistently there. Again, telling us very clearly that conceptual knowledge, maybe grammar knowledge is good, but we need to work on the approach part a little more. So that's when we looked at the final inferences that, okay, in SC, probably what we need to do is we need to focus on the approach. The concepts are fine. We need to focus on the meaning-based approach, basically learning that. In CR, we need to spend maximum energy and you have to build it up from grounds up, because that's the weakest area where we have scores less than 70 percentile twice. So definitely requires more effort. And I have to fine tune the RC part basically a little bit, because RC is the strength, but minor improvements might be possible. And we decided that we'll look at it later. So first we will tackle SC, then we will do CR, because in SC you will get to learn the meaning-based approach, which also helps you in other areas. So that's what we discussed and built up the strategy from there. So in case anyone of you is also looking at a personalized advice, generally at GMATWhiz we consider multiple information, multiple things, and actually come up with the right advice for you. So if you are also stuck with your score and everything, like you want our help to improve your score, feel free to reach out to us at support@GMATWhiz.com, and I'll ask my team to also share a link to kind of schedule a call on my calendar if you want to. So let's talk about the 8-week action plan. So broadly, we talked about the strategy with Balaji's phase started. Now let's talk about the 8-week action plan. So again, I've been doing the monologue. It is, I said I am the moderator and Balaji will be the one who will do the talking here. Sorry. Yeah.
I said so far so good. You're touching on all the important points. Yeah.
I just thought like we'll just talk about the data analysis that we did first, and let's get to the next thing. So let's talk about this 8-week journey. So how did it start? Where did you start your like focus? What was your focus initially? How did you work on it? So let's work on that one.
Right. So yeah, I signed up for a verbal tutor package with GMATWhiz, wherein I get to work with a tutor. I think 10 sessions of 1.5 hours each with Sunita ma'am. So in the first session, it was a diagnostic session. So actually, she asked me to solve out a question out loud. We started with SC, and then see, and then analyze how I approach a question. And then she could instantly see some gaps in my approach. And then we started by working on that.
Okay. Okay. So what was these gaps basically? What were the things that you basically realized that, okay, this is what is not going right with SC overall?
Okay, so honestly, when I started with SC, I did not expect any improvement because SC was constant at V37, right? So I thought maybe now there is
Okay.
no more scope for improvement because I've been doing questions. I know all the concepts.
Uh-huh.
What can I do to improve SC, right? But then I saw
Mhm.
in a few sessions, I could clearly see the depth of understanding, the lack of the depth of understanding that you need. And I was also
Mhm.
quite impatient to jump into the answer choices before internalizing the meaning of the sentence, and that used to mess up with
Okay.
my head when the questions are quite close, when the options are quite close,
Mhm.
or when the meaning is quite close, and I'm not able to resolve that. So that's where we started, by first of all looking at the question, getting the meaning properly, and then once you're thorough with the meaning, once you're sure that you've gotten the intended meaning properly, then moving on to the options.
Okay, so Balaji, a lot of people say that this intended meaning approach is something which takes a lot of time. Like in just thinking about the meaning, spending time on that, it eats up a lot of time. What are your thoughts on that? Like, did you feel that it was taking a lot of time, and how did you cope up with that?
Actually, no. Maybe it's counterintuitive to think like that, to spend as much time with the question than with the options, but it works best for you. Because once you, I mean, there have been so many questions where I have eliminated the answer choices in less than 20 seconds. So that works best for you, right? So 1 minute with the question and less than 20 or 30 seconds to eliminate the answer choices. You are well within 1.5 limit which is required for SC. So I did not find that is time taking or something like that. In fact, I found it was helping me to eliminate answer choices with more confidence, with more clarity. I was not simply eliminating just because it did not sound good. I was eliminating it for a reason, and that was because I spent time with the question. Yeah.
That's very critical. In fact, we lost you for like almost 30 seconds in between. At least I was not able to hear you completely. But what I understand is that you're talking about that initially, if you spend time on the intended meaning, it actually saves you time on the options. So the time that you waste on the options going back and forth between the sentence is the time that you basically save through the intended meaning approach. And one thing which you said was that like it is very critical for you to eliminate choices on solid ground. So a lot of people do this mistake that in sentence correction they just look at what sounds right to their ear, or like focus solely on grammar. But when it comes to hard questions, the intended meaning is very important. So tell us, Balaji, like how did you learn this intended meaning approach? So you talked about that session that you had with Sunita ma'am, like who was your tutor. So how did you improve on this approach? Like how did you understand this approach? What was the steps that you followed overall?
Okay, one thing I saw was I was not very literal with what the sentence is trying to convey. Sometimes
Okay.
you read a sentence, it might sound illogical to you, but you think that this is what the sentence means, and then you pick up that meaning, thinking maybe this is what
Mhm.
the sentence is trying to convey. But you have to be very
Mhm.
literal with what the sentence is trying to convey. If they say a word and that's what they mean, nothing else, nothing more than that. So I picked that
Okay.
up slowly from Sunita ma'am. The way the depth with which she analyzes and reads the sentence, it was quite eye opening for me because I would have never done that on my own, to be honest.
So what is this? What is this approach about? Like a lot of people think that okay, meaning-based approach is okay. You read the sentence, then you stop, you think about the meaning. Is it that is that what is meaning-based approach, or it's something else? You're talking about going into the depth. Like just take an example. Like maybe if you want to just portray it to
Yeah,
see.
for example, I can remember an OG question. So it went something like something an airplane with wings, right? And comma a relative pronoun modifier which. So the way I solved it was I checked it with wings, and then it made sense for me, and then that's how I moved on. And then I did a check. I know that you have to check that relative pronoun with the head of the noun phrase also. I did make a check there with airplane, but somehow I assumed that it should not make sense. And Sunita ma'am, she asked me very humbly, do you have any background in aeronautical engineering? I said no. Then how do you know it doesn't make sense? So that is the depth with which you have to take it. Like when you don't know something, you have to look at the sentence for what it is and not assume what it should convey. Uh, Keep it literal as such. Be very
That's
literal.
very important. Like
Yeah.
sometimes what happens is we overlook things in a hurry. Like when we are trying to like move over things, we glide over things too fast. We
Yeah.
think at a certain level, but we don't get to that level completely. Okay, so for the intended meaning, you're saying that you have to think deeply about the meaning of the sentence. So like let's say after the session with ma'am, like what did you do? So you had a session, you understood that okay, meaning based approach is required. So how did you work on sentence correction? Like how much time did you spend on sentence correction? What is that you did? Uh, just for the users. Yeah.
Yeah, sentence correction. I took almost, I think, 3 weeks around to work on sentence correction. So, my focus at the start was all about getting the accuracy right, making sure that
Okay.
even if I'm getting anything right, I'm getting it right for the correct reasons. not that I picked because it sounded well or something. And that is what I did for 3 weeks. And I started with GMAT with modules also. So we used to
Okay.
have like a session once in 3 4 days. Like I take a session and then work on the modules and see my accuracy go up a little bit. Then take another session and then work slowly. And I worked
Okay.
my way slowly up to the OG questions. That's
Okay.
how we did. We started with the 600, and now once I moved to the OG question, we started with the 600 and slowly started moving from there.
Got it, got it. So we had this question from Siddharth who was asking about the basics, how you improved, like what did you do for your basics? So I think you have just answered that question that you for the SC part at least you went through the GMATWhiz modules. But just tell me one thing, like when you actually came to GMATWhiz, you already had a 700 on GMAT,
Yeah.
and you had a 35 in the last attempt basically that you took. So at that point of time, didn't you feel that okay, I am already aware of all the things, and why am I going through the modules again? Why should I spend 2 weeks time? Like I should just be solving questions that should suffice. Like didn't you feel that way?
Yeah, totally. I did feel that because, but I had done something. I had done everything by myself for 3 attempts, right? So I just wanted to
Mhm.
give it all. I didn't want to leave anything to chance. So I followed whatever the tutor told me blindly. So she asked me to go through the modules. I'm like, okay, I'll go through the modules. And one thing I liked a lot about GMAT's modules is how you respect the user's time. It's quite comprehensive and it is just what you need. And I felt like even after so much preparation, there was something more to learn in the module, so that helped.
Okay, I think
You lost me.
I've lost your voice once again, Balaji. But you're talking about the modules being comprehensive at the same time being concise, that you don't
Yeah.
end up wasting time on unnecessary things overall. So that's a very important thing that you talked about. That even when you came to us, you had a thought that you can skip some of the things, but you ensure that you are actually focusing on improving on the basics also. That's something which is very important. And all of you who are watching Balaji's interview, I know you have come here for tricks and tips. In fact, I have a lot of people asking tips about LSAT, RC also. We'll definitely take up your questions as well. But trust me, there is no shortcut on GMAT. Like anyone who says there's a shortcut on GMAT is cheating you. There are people who come to me and say, Piyush, you know what? I've scored a 600 on GMAT. I know all my basics. I don't want to go through the basics again. I just want to solve more questions. And I've trust me, I've seen so many people over the last 10 years who have just solved questions and stayed stuck at a particular point. So it's very important when you work with someone to believe in them, and that's something which Balaji did. Like we worked very closely with Sunita ma'am, and he made sure that he focuses on the advice. He went through the entire sentence correction curriculum and was able to do that in 2 weeks' time. So it doesn't take a lot of effort, especially with GMATWhiz because the material is very concise. It's focused on the main areas directly. So getting the things right, like so 2 weeks approximately you spent on sentence correction, worked on SC. Now let's move on to critical reasoning, which was your weakest suit. Like how did you work on critical reasoning? What was your approach for CR? And then we'll talk about RC also. But yeah, let's focus on CR for now.
Yeah, critical reasoning, I had to completely revamp the way I approached the argument or the question because I was very mechanical with the way I was solving CR questions. I used to read the argument, okay, this is the conclusion, then falsify, then go into the options, and then back to the argument. It wasn't natural. I don't know if that is how it is supposed to be. But then with critical reasoning, I really liked how you opened the module with by debunking a myth about pre-thinking. Pre-thinking is not predicting the answer, but it is the shadow thought that comes in your mind when you read the argument. So that made me realize, okay, so something has to come in your mind when you read the argument, and you have to read the argument critically. And that is the critical of the critical thinking part, I feel. So that is how I started with critical thinking, like reading the argument critically. I don't know how to put it in words, but like looking for the logical gaps, the shadow thought, or like how you say, that is pre-thinking, I
Okay.
feel, and
Okay.
that is how I
So so
started working.
so and that's a very concise way of putting it across, and that's really I can definitely relate to what you're saying here. That when you are looking at a CR argument, a lot of people think that rethinking is about the answer. So you have to read the argument, think about what could be the assumption or the strengthener. But what Balaji is trying to say is the actual rethinking doesn't happen at the end of the argument. It happens as you read the argument. You have to be critical about the information which is given. So, and just taking a simple example, I think like we have discussed that multiple times over the sessions as in the course as well. That as you go through from one sentence to the next sentence, you have to question what the author is telling you. So obviously, you cannot. question the premise. You cannot question the information given in the premise. But what you can always question is what is the author not telling you? The author is telling this, but what is he trying to hide? Or what is he is not even aware of that he fact that he's hiding something, right? Like he's probably not aware of that. So as Balaji said, you have to be the devil's advocate. You have to play the devil's advocate as well. And Balaji, you talked about role playing also. Like that's something what you did for critical reasoning, right? You try to be a devil's advocate and try to see or think that author is your friend basically who is talking to you and presenting an argument, and you trying to find faults in the way the reasoning is being provided. So that's something which is very critical for anyone to kind of do for critical reasoning. So I have a question from one of our one of the audiences. So this has come at the right time. So Polaroid says, please give us some critical reasoning tips. So anything else that helped you in critical reasoning, Balaji?
Yeah, again, like I think in a strategy call before I got on a session with Sunita ma'am, you looked at my ASR and then you were very rightly came to the conclusion that yes, I'm not spending enough time with the argument. Maybe I'm spending a 50-50 split, 50% of the time with the argument and 50% with the answer choices. But it works better if you spend 70 to 80% of your time in the argument and then like 20% of the time in the answer choices. So the better you understand the argument, the easier the answer choice elimination gets. I could see that slowly with practice. I could see that even before I go into the answer choices, I was quite confident that yes, I know I can eliminate at least the out of scope ones very quickly. And then you narrow it down to two, and then you zoom in on the conclusion, and you're able to pick the correct answer, or at least eliminate your way to the answer. So spend more time with the argument. Yeah.
So when you were focusing on the argument, like you're mentioning that spend more time with the argument, like were you keeping a time limit on your mind in your mind that okay, you need to spend this much time on the argument? Like how was the timing playing out at all in the stage basically?
Nothing actually. We did not work on the timing aspect at all. I think we worked on the timing aspect only in the last 1 or 2 weeks of our 8 week preparation. So,
Okay.
all through my preparation until I finished the RC modules, it was all on accuracy and the process and ensuring that I'm getting the answers right for the right reason by following the right approach, not by taking shortcuts, because shortcuts may work sometime, but it might not work on the test day. So, my approach was all on that, and the timing naturally it comes down.
And that's very important. In fact, I was just speaking to a student today, just yesterday, and she is someone who is taking the test in another 3 weeks time. And she was telling me that you know what, I want to improve my timing. My timing is something which is not in place. I can probably give me 4 minutes to solve a question. I can get everything right. But I was telling her that constantly telling her that when your timing is poor, it's not timing that is your core problem. Your problem is your approach. And if you think too much about timing from day one, you're not never gonna learn the right approach because it will take time initially. And Balaji is here in front of us. He has improved his score by like 60 points in 2 months. Like verbal score improved by almost 10 points. And for the first 6 weeks out of this 8 weeks period, he was not focused on timing at all. And just 2 weeks, he focused on timing. And I think we'll talk about that as we go to the timing strategy part of our session. But last 2 weeks, he focused on timing and he was able to not just get a 760, that to get a verbal 44. In fact, just for your information, guys, with a quant 50 and verbal 44, you get a 770 also. So Balaji's score was a borderline 770 at best, like at least, if not like exact 770. So very close to 770 mark. And that's just 2 weeks of focusing on timing part. So very important, guys, that you do not time yourself when you're learning the right methods. So Balaji, approximately like how much time did you spend on CR? Basically, like you spent 2 weeks on SC. Like how much time on CR?
I think 3 to 4 weeks in CR. I was struggling a bit in CR. So even in few of the sessions, I was told to, like stick with 600, 650, work my way through, get my accuracy up before moving with the modules. So 3 to 4 weeks, I guess. Yeah.
Okay.
Oh, no, I think
Okay.
3 weeks. Yeah.
Very important tip that if you are weak in something, you need to give more time to it. It's not like okay, you give equal time to everything. And what Balaji said was like it's important for you to move up the ladder in terms of difficulty level one step at a time. So that 600, 650 level, get them right first, build your confidence, move to the second level, and so on. Okay, so okay, Shubhendra has a question. Uh, I'll ask you to take it. I think it's for me or you. I don't know. So he says I have a 710 with a verbal 35, and I have my next attempt on 2nd of September in a month's time. Can GMATWhiz help me in such short span of time? Am I really late again? Balaji, you want to take a shot at it? I'm not sure. So
No, no, sure, sure.
yeah.
I would like to quote your exact words. So even I was in the same place, right? So I saw your ad of someone improving their score by so many points in 20 days. So that's what I wanted to do.
Yeah.
And then I spoke to you, and then you told me if you are chasing that, you are definitely not going to do it. But if you simply focus on the methods, you might maybe be test ready in 20 days or 30 days. So I think that's what I want to tell him to. Don't focus on the time; it is not going to help you. But focus on the methods; you might get there. Yeah.
And everyone is different. It takes time. And just like given the link of Rishabh's case, so Rishabh's interview is here. Shubhendra, if you want to see that out, the same interview Balaji was referring to. He's one of the students who helped improve scores from 670 to 740 in just 20 days time. So again,
Yeah.
everyone has their own story. Balaji did it in 2 months, and I don't think like you would regret doing it in 2 months, right? Like
No, no, not
it's
at all.
still
I
fine,
really
right?
like something you told me. You told me that the tutor, she'll tell you when you're test ready. So
Yes.
that works. So after I think the 1 month mark, I was getting impatient. I wanted to be test ready. I wanted to take the test because I have applications also to work on. But then I thought, okay, I'm going to take one attempt and I want to really give my best shot. So she's the best judge. She has a lot of experience working with students like me, and then I just let it be. So I was okay taking the test maybe late also and then applying for round two. So that's how it worked. I did not chase timing at all because I didn't want to have that pressure. I really wanted to learn properly and then grasp on the methods.
No, really, really happy to hear that from you. A lot of people don't understand this aspect that GMAT is as much a test of your potential as it is of anxiety management. And
Totally.
anyone who kind of worries about the timing that, okay, I have to get done with the GMAT on this date can actually like be pressurized by that. Again, just for the clarity of all the people out here and even Shubhendra, I'm not saying that you will not be able to get ready by 2nd of September.
That's
It's
correct.
not that what I'm trying to communicate. My thought is you don't focus on 2nd of September. That gives you the best shot at actually achieving your goal by 2nd of September. That's
That's
what I
correct.
want to say,
Yeah.
basically. Yeah. So yeah, so again, Subinder, if you want, you can definitely connect with me personally. I can help you in understanding like what we can do with you, how we can work together. But moving on, broadly speaking, SC is what you spend about a couple of weeks. So again, I wanted to show the 8 week action plan snapshot to the users. I'll just quickly share that as well. So basically, like first 2 weeks, sentence correction is approximately what Balaji did. And again, I planned out this roadmap. I spoke to Sunita ma'am also to kind of understand how the roadmap was. And around 3 weeks from week 2 to week 5 was focused on CR. And week 5 to week 6, like the 1 week is first focused on RC fine tuning. And what you need to understand is that when we started off, it was not outlined like this. It was not like, okay, we'll do 2 weeks of SC, 3 weeks of CR, 1 week of RC. No one can pinpoint. Like we can plan, we can think, we can guess basically, but we have to always pivot based on how we are performing. So obviously there are cases when we see, okay, people are doing better in SC, we can fast track this. Like I'm also working with a lot of students personally, and I've made people fast track sentence correction. There's a guy who I'm working with who has scored a 660 when he came to me with his for his prep, and we decided that we will do a lot of work on SC. Like we'll focus around 2 weeks on SC, and I asked him to move away from SC within 3 days, basically. Because I saw that he was able to pick things up very fast. So all of this is dynamic, and at GMATWhiz we always believe in this personalization part. So let's focus on the RC bit now, Balaji. Like, how was that 1 week that you spent on RC planned out? Like, how did you focus on RC? Just let's spend some time on that.
Yeah, so RC I started on a decent level. I started somewhere around a V39 or a V40, I guess, in my first attempt. So my
Yes.
focus on RC was not letting that slip because I tried something different in my second attempt and then I was punished there. So I didn't want to do that. So again, I wanted to cement my methods, fine tune my methods, and then get it right. And the GMAT versus RC passages, it also helped quite a lot. The passages are sourced very thoughtfully, they're sourced well, and even the answer choices are quite close. So that helped me practice and then get in tune with the RC better.
Okay. Okay. So how did it help basically? Like, what was the exact thing that helped you in that particular part? So
RC again, it was again not focusing on the time at all, like really spending time with the passage. I felt like the better you understand the passage, naturally, you don't as a benchmark, you should not take more than 1.5 to 2 minutes solving a question after reading a passage. So if you are taking more
Mhm.
than 1.5 minutes, then you have done something wrong while reading a passage. So that was what I
So what
did,
are the
especially.
things? What are the things that you will keep in mind when you're reading the passage? Again, there are a lot of people who are asking questions around RC. So I understand, like I understand what you're saying about how to read, but just for people who are actually struggling to improve their verbal scores, who are struggling with RC, because RC is the place where people get the lowest percentiles, basically. Like that's the most difficult section in GMAT as per data, basically. And for the record, guys, Balaji scored a perfect 51 in RC. So 51 is the highest score that you can get, and GMAT gives you breakdown in ESR for individual areas. Balaji had 100% accuracy in this attempt in RC. He didn't get a single question wrong, and he scored a verbal 51 in RC. So basically, what is this understanding of the passage that you're talking about? How do we read the passage? Again, I'm not asking you to kind of like explain the entire process, but just a few tips which can help users.
It's like seeing the passage in your head, like visualizing. I feel like, say, if you get a
Okay.
science passage, it is easy to visualize, and then I try to have a mental image of the passage in my mind, and then that helps in the retention and the flow of the passage also. But the challenge is when you get some abstract topics or some history or social topics where they talk about a concept, that's when the visualization gets challenging. But there also you can kind of visualize. So to get into the passage, to bite into the crux of it, visualization helped a lot. So I used to first of
Okay.
all I read at a speed which is comprehensible for me, and then try and visualize,
Okay.
and then go to the questions.
Okay. Okay. So what you're trying to say is basically not just try to read, but also try to relate basically about
Yeah.
what is happening. Like by visualization is that's what you mean. So probably if it's talking about history, you try to place yourself in those shoes. Try to imagine yourself in that situation. That what is the author really doing with this? Where is he taking the entire discussion forward, and how one part of the passage is linked to the next part of the passage, and so on, so that you have a clarity of thought that okay, this is what is happening. So now, like, tell me, Balaji, like when you're reading passages in this fashion, doesn't it happen that there is a lot of detail which is there in the passage, and it's very difficult for you to retain that detail? Like, don't you think that happens as well?
Yeah, no problem. You don't have to retain the detail. You simply have to retain the flow, where the passage is flowing, what the author is trying to say. So, whenever I used to approach an RC, I used to approach like, okay, what is the author trying to advocate, right? Because RC also at the end of the day is like a big argument. It's like a bigger
Correct.
argument with lot of context. So that's how I used to look at it. If there is an opinion and then the author is refuting, then there will be some kind of premise to support that, right? And then those
Correct.
are when you have to slow down at those places and really get essence of it, and that all helps.
True, true. So basically, what you're saying is that focus on the flow more important than the detail, and that's the exact opposite of what most people do. They focus on the detail, very less focus is given to the flow. So one more thing, again, this is a very common myth, Balaji. Like a lot of people say that for reading passages or like RC, you need to read a lot. You need to read novels. You need to read magazines. Did you do any of that in the last 2 months that you prepared for?
I'm not at all a voracious reader, so that is why I came in not expecting any improvement above a V41.
Okay.
RC is more of how you can sort the information in your head or like on a paper, and then I do not think it's required. So I did not read any Wall Street Journal, nothing like that. Nothing. Just the OG passages, and they are good enough to get you where you want to.
Good. Really, really glad to hear that. I have scored a verbal 41 myself. I don't have a verbal 44 like you, so so I'm not that good. But still, when I was taking the GMAT, I have not completed an entire book in my life. Like I always started reading books, and like after like one third of the book is over, I used to leave. So I hated reading. I could go to the extent of saying that. So just for the record, anyone who is watching this, you don't have to be a voracious reader to get RCs right. You have to just focus on that particular passage that you're solving at that point of time to get it right. Okay, so that sums up the first 6 weeks. And what how were your last 2 weeks spent? Like just before your GMAT, you put the test on 16th of July, if I'm right, correct?
Yeah.
16th or 15th? 16th, right? Okay.
Yeah.
So basically, what did you do in the last 2 weeks? Like in the month of July, what was your plan? Yeah, overall.
Last 2 weeks was all consolidating everything and then putting together in a test and a timed environment and see how I was performing. So
Okay.
the first timed quiz I took, it was a consolidated quiz from GMATWhiz's module. There I saw
Okay.
I was struggling. I was not able to let go of questions easily. So that was a
Okay.
problem we identified at the start, and because of that, I couldn't answer the last 4 5 questions. So that is where I worked on being comfortable letting go of questions and not spending disproportionate amount of time on any one question.
That's very, very important. In fact, like I had the slide out here to just kind of focus on this. So week 6 to week 8, when you achieve 760, the only focus, like only not I will not say only focus, but the focus on timing came in this phase only. And
That's correct.
and the best part is that all of it was still done in 2 weeks because you had the approach in place by then, basically. So did you do anything specifically to improve your timing, like anything specifically to improve your timing?
Nothing at all.
Nothing at all.
Like, yeah, like I told you, I made peace with the fact that I take on an average 2 minutes per question, and that means I'll be able to solve 31, 32 questions in the test, and I was okay leaving the last four because for the sake of attempting the last four, also I didn't want to mess up my accuracy in the first 31 questions. So I simply made peace with the fact I'm going to go to the test, solve 32 questions, be in my natural game of taking 2 minutes per question. That's what I did. I didn't do anything specific for the time.
So Vidur has a question like which is relevant right now. So Vidur says, did you take practice tests only during the last 2 weeks, or you also took practice tests during the first 6 weeks? I mean, by practice tests, he probably means mocks or full length practice tests, I guess.
Only the last 2 weeks, the last 1.5 weeks to be precise.
Okay. Were you not getting anxious that you're not taking mocks at all?
Yeah, I was, but I trusted the tutor, like I told you. I trusted her experience. I trusted her guidance. In fact,
That's
actually, I
important.
want to bring out a point. Never did she ask me to take SC quiz or a CR quiz like that. It was
Uh,
always solve a question in a timed fashion, in a test-like
mhm.
intensity, and then analyze that question, take the learnings forward to the second question, and so on and so forth. And her rationale behind that was also quite good. What she told was, "You're never going to get five SC questions or five CR questions at a stretch, right? So why do you
Mhm.
have to solve that? Rather, you can like solve one question at a time, take the learnings forward, and then try and accumulate all your learnings and apply in the next question." So that's what I did. The last 1.5 weeks, of course, that anxiety was building up, but I trusted the tutor. Yeah,
And that trust is very very important. And one thing which you said was all is something which a lot of people actually downplay, which is you actually don't learn from a question. You actually learn from the solution. So when you
yeah,
actually solve just one question at a time, you are able to kind of spend a lot more energy on reviewing the solution. You are able to understand that okay, this is where I'm going wrong. And if you're doing like 5 or 10 question quizzes, your focus is on solving, not learning.
yeah,
This is something which is very simple, but a lot of people don't understand that. And then these are small things which kind of act together to kind of push you towards the target score of yours. So
yeah.
really, really great to hear that. So just wanted to just talk about one more thing which I just forgot. But broadly speaking, basically, like last 2 weeks is when you looked at the practice tests only, and you focused and you trusted on the advice of the tutor. Yeah. So one thing which I wanted to tell the audience was that again in GMATWhiz platform, we have an amazing feature which also predicts your performance, which actually predicts that okay, this is your projected GMAT score. So even if you're not taking marks, that projected GMAT score is serving that purpose to kind of give you an idea whether you're heading in the right direction or not. So that is like just from a data standpoint. But when you are studying, trust me, when you're studying and going in the right on the right path now, as a student you get to know. And if you remember during our introduction, like when I asked Balaji how was the feeling, the one thing that he said was I felt more confident when I was actually taking the test this time around. So that is something which happens if you're going on the right track automatically. Okay, so what about your mock strategy, like Balaji? Let's come to that. Like, what was the mock strategy? Again, just to for the users to see the score improvement, basically, which happened from the last attempt to the final attempt of Balaji. You can see he improved by 20, almost 20 percentile in all the areas, basically all the three areas. Overall, like an amazing score. And if you talk about the accuracy chart, also like he hardly made mistakes. Like one mistake in the first quarter, one in the second quarter, two mistakes in the last quarter. So all even the hard questions he was able to get right. So what about your timing strategy? Again, like let's leave this slide out. So what was your timing strategy? Let's talk about it a little bit now. Yeah.
Timing
Timing
strategy.
strategy intense mock strategy, pacing, let's call it. Yeah.
Yeah, so I noticed my pacing naturally it comes out around 2 minutes, right? And then I
Okay.
was okay leaving the last four questions, and my strategy was sticking to that, especially in block
Okay.
three. I noticed that in my first three attempts, somewhere around halfway through the test, I used to glance at the clock, feel that I am feeling short by 3, 4 minutes, and then do something different, and then that used to mess up my accuracy in block three, and then the score plummets from there, right? So I made a conscious
Okay.
attempt to not do that. So this time around, I did glance at the clock. I did see that, yes, I was falling short. But then since I made up my mind that, okay, I'm going to pick some random options in the last four questions, so I went ahead with that. So it is more about anxiety management, not chasing the time, just being in your natural game. Just let the clock run and then you do your thing. By the mocks, that mental clock in me, it got reinforced. I knew if I'm spending too much time on a question, and I knew when I had to let go. Other than that, that was what I did about the time. Just be aware of how much time you're spending on a question. And once you're aware of that, you can let go of a question if you're spending too much time there.
Okay. Any other thing that you did during the mocks, basically, like in the mock stage?
No, nothing else actually. Timing, we did not do nothing. We didn't do anything there. Timing was okay. Yeah.
Perfect, perfect. So just to kind of show the change in timing that happened. So this was, I'll just show from the ESR. So this is how the first, like the last attempt, like the third attempt happened, basically.
Yeah. See,
You can see the accuracy there and the timing here, right?
yeah.
So this is, I think, the red one is what Balaji was referring to. That in the last quarter when he was also short of time, like you can see last quarter he had 1 minute 17 seconds per question. There also he was trying to rush through the questions and trying to attempt everything. Basically, that was something which was happening, and this is one data that I saw. And I have the other ESRs also, like the first and the second attempt. This is a consistent story in all the ESRs that towards the end, like in the third quarter, fourth quarter, he was trying to kind of equally divide the time and trying to get everything right. So one thing which changed was that instead of changing your approach from one question to another, stick to the right approach and try to focus on less questions and getting them right. That was something which is important. And if you look at the last attempt, like which obviously was the 760 attempt, uh, there are less mistakes. And if you see the last quarter timing has actually improved a bit. He had slightly more time because he was not worried about time. So
Yeah.
that also happens. Like you was worry less about the time, things improve. And then you need to look at this red pie chart, this red wala portion. That like the questions that he got wrong, he hardly spent time on them, basically. So this is something which is important. Like towards the end, you're less short on time. Just focus on a few questions, get them right. So the ones that you got right, most likely you still spent about quarter to 2 minutes or 2 minutes on those questions and like hardly spend time on the wrong one. So this is a very smart way of kind of going about doing things. And I have done a testing strategy session, which you can check out, where I cover this strategy in depth. So this is a link which you guys can also look at to get some idea about how to kind of use this testing strategy. So I'll have a question from Shantanu. I'll just put this up over here. So he says, how did you review the mistakes? I make mistakes and I learn what I did wrong, but that improvement doesn't stay with. I do understand at that point, but later same mistakes would happen, especially in CR. So that's a very good question Shantanu had asked, and I'm pretty sure this happens with almost everyone who is struggling with their score. So what's your take on this, Balaji?
You need to refresh your error log, like go through error log, at least have a glance at it once or twice a week. I did that diligently. I used to have an error log and then like keep revisiting, revising, and then just ensure that it's always at the back of your mind. These are the kind of mistakes you're prone to, so that you do not do that again. And also that one question at a time, it really helps you internalize that mistakes and take it forward in the second question. If I do a silly mistake, especially in say SC question or a CR question, then I would really dig deep and then see what led me to make that kind of a mistake, right? Really ask some probe questions and then get to the crux of it. Is it because I thought it was easy, or was that did I become lazy in my approach, or is it some kind of a trick which I fell for? So it is all of that. It's all about self-reflection, introspection, how deep you can look into it, and then one question at a time. That approach really helps. Record all your errors in an error log and then revisit them at least once or twice a week. That will help.
Definitely, definitely great inputs. And just adding on to what Balaji said, so this reflection which he mentioned, basically what is important here is that Shantanu, you're not just looking at what you did wrong. Okay, you mentioned in the message that I try to learn what I did wrong. You should not look at what went wrong. You should look at why did it went go wrong. So the problem is that we try to learn or memorize things. That okay, in this type of question, if I made a mistake with simple past tense and past perfect, next time I see a simple past and past perfect tense question, I will be more careful. But you
Yeah.
cannot remember 10,000 things that you should not do on a question. You should try to see, okay, why did you not focus on the tense? It probably
Hmm.
you did not focus on the tense because you're not focusing on the meaning, basically. And that's what Balaji is trying to say, that you have to do self reflection. You have to understand that, okay, what went wrong when you were solving the question. Not like the exact concept, but more importantly, was it because you were not focused enough at that point of time, or was it because you came across a new construction? So just try to do that, and obviously, revision of the error log is something which is very, very crucial. So do maintain the error log and revise it. Uh, so great. I think we have had a lot of great tips on Balaji today. So if any one of you has any other questions that you want to ask Balaji, I'm opening it up for the open-ended Q&A part now. So you guys can ask your questions basically. So just summarizing in the meantime what Balaji talked about, the strategy that focus on using a consistent approach in the test, like don't change your approach. Even if you're short of time, just make sure that you stick to that approach, not change your approach to kind of do questions faster. Don't make that mistake. Second thing is that you should try to get as high accuracy as possible in the first 27 questions, especially in verbal. Last 9 questions, you can still skip a few here and there, but first 27, you should try to get a high accuracy, and that's what you would see with Balaji's attempt as well. And if you required, be choosy with the last 7, 8 questions if needed. That's something that you can always do. And understand that correcting the methodology is the key. Just because I've told you that, okay, you can spend more time on the first 27 questions doesn't mean that you can actually get a high score based on that. So approach still holds the key. So that's the main part of the session. Guys, feel free to reach out to me on this detail. I've just put it out here. But if you guys have any questions for Balaji, please feel to ask me or us basically. We are happy to answer those things for you. So we had a great discussion. We covered almost all the areas that we have for basically verbal. And I'm sure that many of you would have actually benefited from the discussions. You would have seen a lot of problems that you guys are facing were faced by Balaji, and he was able to still improve his score significantly. So make sure that you implement these things. And if you really found this webinar helpful or the session helpful, do give it a like and do comment as well, so that it can reach more people who are also struggling with their scores as well. So any other questions, please feel free to share with us. Just one quick announcement, guys. So as a special offer, those of you who are watching this interview live, you can get a special discount on a verbal tutoring service. You will get to work with the same tutor Balaji worked with, which is Sunita ma'am. I call her ma'am because she was my tutor as well, so I cannot call her by her first name just out of respect and all. So she's like a very like engaged tutor. She deeply cares about her students. So if you want to work with her, we have a special offer for people, for only 3 people who are gonna use this link, which is there in the chat right now, are gonna get a $50 discount on our private tutoring service, and they are also gonna get access to our mocks and the quant module, for which we charge usually around $50 extra. So you will get that access free of charges here. So if you want to avail this offer, you should do it right away, because this is only available for the first 3 students. It's only available for them, and once these 3 students have taken it, this discount will expire. Okay, so if you want to avail this, go ahead and do it now. You can also check out our details on the private tutoring page. But I have a question for Balaji, so I'll just put it up. So Shantanu says, did you take mocks apart from the official ones, and if yes, then which ones, and did it help?
Okay, so by the time I took all my 3 attempts, I had exhausted all my official mocks. So I
Okay.
reset 5 and 6, and then I retook the fifth one and all GMATWhiz mocks. So in total, I think I took 4 or 5 mocks, 4 GMATWhiz and 1 official mock, 5 that after resetting, because I didn't
And
have any official.
how did you find the GMAT mocks basically? What was the quality of GMAT mocks overall?
Yeah, I found the RC of GMAT was quite tough. It was way tougher than what you get in OG, but it helped me. Actually, you cannot be lazy in the way you eliminate the answer choices. So the passages are sourced very well, like I told you. And the
Mhm.
algorithm also is quite good enough. Like it progressively keeps on feeding you with tougher questions. So it was quite good
Mhm.
practice on the timing front also. And the scores were
And I think
accurate.
you scored you
758.
scored a 750, right?
Yeah,
So generally we
started.
say that the GMAT mocks are like 0 to 20 points deviation happens on the upper side. Like if you get X on GMAT it's 0 to 20 points more than that what you get on like you get 0 to 20 points more in the actual GMAT than what you get on GMAT. So you scored a 750 in one of the mocks, like the latest mocks that you took, and actual score was 760. So you can understand, Shantanu, probably that's the similarity overall. And yeah, official marks definitely you should give, because these are from the official website.
Yeah.
But sometimes what happens is that many people prematurely take it. Some people over multiple times need to take it. So in those cases, we can always look at mocks from GMATWhiz, and even Manhattan mocks are pretty decent. We also recommend them in some cases. And both these mocks, GMATWhiz and Manhattan, you'll find them to be slightly more difficult than that for GMAT. So that's about it. So I think I don't see any other questions. So I think we have covered a good number of important insights. So thank you so much, Balaji, for taking our time today and speaking to all the people. I'm sure that a lot of people are gonna take inspiration from your story. Even if that was like 5 minutes of the interview, they will still get a lot of inspiration because at least they will know that this is possible. This is still possible. You can shatter the score plateau. So thank you so much for being an inspiration for so many people, and all the best for the application journey. And then this is just the first part of the race that you have won. So all the best for this. Thank you so
Thank
much,
you. Thank you
Balaji.
so much. Thanks for having me. Yeah.
And guys, if you want to connect with us, feel free to use this link. I've just shared the links in the chat. So feel free to reach out to us at any point of time, and do give the video a like and subscribe to the GMAT Club channel for more such amazing videos. So thank you so much everyone for being here today. It was great having all of you. Thank you guys.